It's not over yet. I need your help to save the world.
I have nothing to live for.
Yes, you do. I'll show you.
Done, Barry?
None. We can do the impossible.
Flash!
Let's do this one last time.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. There are a bunch of big reveals and announcements about the final season of The Flash, big crossovers. We have The Flash movie, pretty much everybody coming back, James Gunn's big reboot of DC movies with a new group of characters coming in real soon. There's a lot happening in the larger DC universe, so we'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. James Gunn did say that he would reveal his DC Phase 1 of all the new reboot movies that are coming before the end of January, so we're going to find out really quick what those first couple of movies are going to be. He already confirmed the new version of Superman. It's like a younger version of Superman, not played by Henry Cavill, but Henry Cavill did say that he might wind up coming back based on what James Gunn said. Like, there's a chance for me coming back in a future project. I'll talk about that later in the video because I still think that they're building up to some sort of Crisis on Infinite Earths in the movies. It's just a little bit different from what people thought that it might have been before James Gunn was hired by DC. First thing though, probably biggest news you saw in your feeds recently is Stephen Amell officially announced his return to The Flash as Oliver Queen. He's coming back in episode 9. There's only 13 episodes in the last season. You have to imagine Oliver Queen's Spectre coming back to slap Peacemaker for making that dig at Green Arrow during Peacemaker season 1.
Like Green Arrow?
No, not like Green Arrow. That dude goes to brony conventions dressed in the back half of Twilight Sparkle with a 4-inch wide butthole drilled in the costume.
No, I actually heard that's true about Green Arrow, but that's the first thing he said that's real.
An Aquaman fish.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Really great joke, but it was on top of all the Aquaman having sex with this jokes. In the old days, episode 9 would have been like the mid-season finale, but the way they plot these shows out, the shorter runs, and the way they air the seasons is a little bit wonky. So the basic idea, in the trailer, you hear him say, "I need your help, it's not over, please come help me save the world." That's probably Barry talking to Oliver Queen's Spectre character, asking him to come back and help, and it's probably like right before the final arc on The Flash, like the final batch of episodes, where the shit really hits the fan. The last we saw him in Crisis on Infinite Earths in the Arrow finale, which happened right after that, he turned into the new version of the Spectre for the entire DC multiverse. And if you remember, they actually used the TV version of Crisis on Infinite Earths to canonize everything to like a larger DC multiverse. They're invoking that in the Flash movie too, like the whole idea that all the classic movies like Christopher Reeve Superman, the Christian Bale Batman, all this stuff happened in just alternate universes. That's why they had the footage from Batman Michael Keaton's Earth, Earth 89. They also had footage from the Green Lantern movie in there too. And the way they explain his character is that he's not just the Arrowverse version of the Spectre for like that one universe. The Spectre is the embodiment of God's wrath, and in the DC universe there is a one true God, like a capital G God, called the Presence. He's like DC's version of the one above all in the Marvel universe. So it's like one true God for the entire DC multiverse and one Spectre. The way they ended the Arrow finale, they kind of made it seem like the Anti-Monitor took Felicity to the dimension where he existed now, and she just existed with like a sliver of his consciousness that remembered his life as Oliver Queen, where like the rest of his God-tier consciousness was busy being the Spectre across the rest of the DC multiverse. So technically, when he shows up on The Flash again in episode 9, he'll have been on the clock for God this whole time being the Spectre since Crisis on Infinite Earths. They didn't say exactly what his story would be, other than it just sets up the final arc of The Flash. Like you see him in the trailer calling out to him in the woods like, "Luke, dude, Earth's in trouble, please come help." He'll probably come back and they'll have some Easter eggs for his debut, like The Flash debuted inside an episode of Arrow Season 2. When Barry first got his powers, Oliver Queen also guest starred during The Flash episode 1 and gave him a little bit of a pep talk. It'll probably be a version of that, kind of like the pep talk he gave him during Crisis on Infinite Earths.
You can be better. Because you can inspire people in a way that I never could. Watching over your city like a guardian angel, making a difference, saving people in a flash.
Also probably giving him a little bit of cosmic help too, like, okay, give you the pep talk, but also give him some cosmic power up too that will help him with the villains. Because the whole idea is that this is the final season of Flash. They're bringing as many big characters back as possible and introducing as many big ones from the comics that they've been waiting to do this whole time. Like they're doing Red Death finally. They're doing a version of Cobalt Blue. So the idea is that heading into the final arc, the Flash is getting his ass handed to him and he needs Oliver Queen's help. The Red Death character in the comics is a fusion of Batman who merged with Barry Allen Flash to gain his Speed Force powers, but in doing so, his consciousness was trapped inside Batman's new body. If you're a big Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball Super fan, it's just like Dragon Ball fusions, like the Gogeta version of the Flash. They did a version of this previously on The Flash like a couple seasons ago when he merged with Gorilla Grodd. At the time, I assumed it was just meant to be a teaser for them eventually doing Red Death. Like, why would you tease a fusion if you weren't going to do a bigger Red Death twist in the future? Because when they started doing the future arcs, like they started showing the future of Central City, Nora, and what was happening many years down the line, they started to tease the Red Death character in news headlines. So like eventually we knew they were going to do the character. But because it was happening so long ago, I think at the time they didn't fully know how they were going to pay off that twist. Like, okay, we'll do Red Death at some point and we'll just figure out who that's going to be eventually. It seems like they're still not allowed to use actual Batman, no surprise there. So I think they're saying that this Red Death is a version of Batwoman. They also teased a version of Cobalt Blue in the Season 8 finale, who will probably be played by Eddie Thawne. We'll see about that. There's been a fan theory since the end of Season 1, like 8 or 9 years ago, that Eddie would be a version of Cobalt Blue eventually. They confirmed that Wally West is coming back. They confirmed that the Arrowverse version of Diggle is coming back. He did guest star on Superman and Lois, but that was sort of like another version because that show is set on a different Earth. There was a whole big thing with Diggle's Green Lantern arc. I explained that in a previous video. Because they weren't allowed to do genuine Green Lantern stuff, and they completely rebooted what was going to happen with the Green Lantern TV show on HBO. Like, they completely changed their plans for that. They had to scrap all their plans for Diggle Green Lantern stuff, and he basically gave up the power. He's like, no, I don't want it, and the ring went away. Definitely the least satisfying way to pay off that storyline. After all the Ezra Miller stuff happened in the DC movies this year with the Flash movie, I was ready for James Gunn to call up Grant Gustin to make him the new movie Flash, but he's finishing 9 seasons of playing the character. I don't think he wants to sign up for like another 10 years of doing that, and whoever James Gunn casts as the new Flash character, I think the idea is that he wants someone who can be the character for the next 10 years. There's been a lot of rumors and speculations about who's going to be recast, who's coming back. I think the idea right now is that all these Snyderverse characters, like Ezra Miller, most notably, will be recast after the Flash movie, after Aquaman 2 comes out. And maybe in the future, some of them will come back via the multiverse, which I'll explain in a second. But if you're seeing that Ezra Miller might stay on, that's not really a thing. Like, there are a couple executives that reportedly said that we're amenable to Ezra Miller staying, but it's James Gunn who actually says who stays and who goes, and James Gunn is the one that wants to recast pretty much everybody. So that means that Ezra Miller is getting the boot after the Flash movie, and I'm not talking about the golden boots, which are actually in the Flash poster, like they're doing the golden boots, even though they teased that a while ago. In fact, James Gunn just posted about Wonder Woman debunking another theory about when characters would start showing up. He said that he would announce like the next 8 to 10 years worth of DC movies soon, but actually he's really only announcing the next couple of years. Phase 1 introduced the new versions of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Green Lantern. Yes, Green Lantern. There is reports about them actually working on a Green Lantern movie now. The Flash, new Cyborg, build up to their first Justice League Rebirth-style movie where they actually team up for the first time in the next 4 years. Then they have their Phase 2, they fold in more characters, then they have DC Phase 3 and go full-blown Avengers Endgame with the DC Multiverse, which is kind of like a Crisis on Infinite Earth style movie. There are a couple types of big crossover movies they can do. Like, there's a dark multiverse movie you could do after Crisis on Infinite Earths. There's always the Blackest Night if you're talking about bigger Green Lantern stories like the War of Light. Originally, they were using the Flash movie to set up a version of Crisis on Infinite Earths in the movies, but that was before James Gunn was hired, and obviously James Gunn had very different plans about who he wants the characters to be and what the movies are going to be, but he also might want to work up to a multiverse crossover like Crisis on Infinite Earths in the next 10 years. When Henry Cavill said that even though he's not going to be in the new Superman movie with the younger version, and he might come back later, that's probably what he was talking about. Like, oh, we're going to do a big Crisis on Infinite Earths movie eventually. That's probably when I would come back. And they just say that the events of the Snyderverse era of movies with those actors, those Justice League actors, took place on another Earth. And all the stuff that James Gunn is doing is happening on another Earth. Easiest way to hand wipe over that, I've talked about them using the Flashpoint twist in the Flash movie to explain some of that, set it up in a really small way. Like, oh, by the way, Flashpoint, Flash is messing this up, so everybody's going to look a little bit different when you see him again. Just really hoping that they pay off that Grant Gustin cameo scene with him having a cameo in the Flash movie. Also, John Wesley Shipp. I'd be a little disappointed if they don't pay that off. The funny thing is I actually just did a Flash movie trailer video because a new clip came out that teased Michael Shannon Zod was going to be one of the villains. They have an evil version of a Barry Allen Flash from Michael Keaton Batman's Earth who's going to be one of the villains of the film. So that's why they're doing 2 versions of Ezra Miller, because the other one from his Earth is going to be sort of like an evil version of a kid Flash, like a younger Ezra Miller Flash. Right after I posted that video, Warner Brothers actually contacted me. They're like, could you please take out some of this footage? Like, we don't want this online. Like, we're going to pull your video down altogether if you don't remove this little clip here. But in that new trailer, they just tease when the Flash is crossing the multiverse, the Ezra Miller Flash is crossing the multiverse. They have scenes from all the classic DC movies. Like you see Christian Bale's Batman, you see a version of John Wesley Shipp as his version of the Flash from his show. You see Arrowverse characters, Grant Gustin is in there. You see Linda Carter in Yet Another Earth, so it's just them doing the same thing that they did on the TV shows with Crisis on Infinite Earths, just canonizing all of DC as part of like a larger multiverse. Like all this stuff is canon, it just came from different Earths. It's all canon through the multiverse. James Gunn should be making a bunch of DC movie announcements in the next couple of weeks. Make sure you enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss that. Of course, I'll do videos for whatever he winds up announcing. Everyone click here for that brand new Flash movie trailer, and click here to learn about Ben Affleck going back to Marvel to play another Marvel character. Thank you so much for watching, everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.